Hey guys, hi everyone. Good morning. Hello guys. Hi everyone. Good morning. Hello Govind. Thank you so much for such comments, Govind. I am very happy that you are finding these classes very helpful for you, and I hope likewise for all other students as well. Good morning, Soumya. Good morning, Arka. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible as well as visible. Right? I think I should be already. So we will wait 1 or 2 minutes for rest of the people to join, and then accordingly we are going to start our class. Good morning, Ashu. Good morning. Good morning. I hope all of you are doing very well, and I hope that everyone is continuously practicing the concepts that we have been discussing in this entire session. Good morning, Said. Good morning, Sumita. Assalamu alaikum. Walaikum salam, Sadi. Good morning, Sumit. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So we will start in 1 or 2 minutes. We will wait a few minutes only for the rest of the students to join, and then accordingly we are going to start our class. In our today's class, we will discuss some of the anonymous topics. We can say it is not just limited to asynchronous or synchronous. It is something that's really going to help you in interviews. That's really going to help you in development as well. So we are going to discuss few of the very anonymous topics, whether we talk about throttling, whether we talk about bubbling, whether we talk about local storage, whether we talk about function querying, call, apply, bind, or any other topic that you would want me to discuss. So today's class is an anonymous class. Okay, so let's make it very successful by sharing it already within your network on your WhatsApp or on LinkedIn or wherever you can. So please do that. Walaikum salam, Najam. Good morning, Sumit, Umesh. I am doing very well, Umesh. I hope same for you. Hello, Muzammil. In that case, Govind, please. I think for a student, if you are part of a Google Classroom, your name would not be visible to you. It will be visible to me, to other participants. Okay. So if you are able to see the assignments on our Google Classroom, then it's okay. If not, then that's an issue. Please text me in that case on my WhatsApp directly, and I will try to resolve it by the evening. Okay, na? Perfect. So let's not waste any more time. Let's directly start our proper class by understanding few of the very important topics, as I said. And we will start with two most important topics for today's class. One of them is called debouncing, another one is called throttling. These two topics are very much similar to each other, and they are one of the hottest questions related to our interview processes. So I'm waiting for some other students to join. Someone please put a message in your respective WhatsApp group and ask students to join, okay? So that we can start accordingly. What's the name of our batch? It's August, right? And we are currently discussing JavaScript. And I'm going to create a separate folder here, and I'm going to name it Anonymous. Don't confuse this folder name with anonymous functions. It is simply anonymous topics. Any practical resource. Sumit, I am your practical resource. Don't you think that? Right? So I don't think you will find a better resource than me. I am your resource. Take notes on every class, and I'm pretty much sure you are going to be there. Good morning, Anil. Good morning. Good morning. So please and please, I request you all guys to please put a message in your WhatsApp group and ask your colleagues, ask your friends over there to join as soon as they can. Okay. I will be pretty much sure. One thing I will say one thing over here, Govind, which is that if you watch all the classes of this course that I have launched few months back on JavaScript, I can guarantee you 95% of questions we have already covered of interviews, already covered. You just need to take notes. You just need to practice every day to be there, and I can guarantee you will find all of the questions there. Okay. Basu says, hello, sir. One good news. I got the job letter from TCS. Very good. Okay, that is some news, very happy news that I can see from one of my students. So congratulations, Basu. And I'm definitely sure that I'm going to receive same messages from rest of the active students as well. Okay. So shall we start our class? Shall we start our class? Come on, guys, give me a quick confirmation. Shall we start our class? Shall we? Perfect. Okay, let's start our class. We will start our class by understanding one of the very important topics called as debouncing. Now, trust me, when we say debouncing, it's one of the very important topics. The reason is it is a technique. It's not a particular concept like you have to learn it. No, it's a technique. So techniques mean that anyone can implement it in any way. Depends on your coding understanding, depends on how you want to implement it. But what is this technique there for? It is there for only one reason: to increase the efficiency. Okay. Sir, efficiency in terms of what? Let me give you a simple real life example. Let's suppose I am on the internet here, okay, and I want to go on an internet, I want to do a shopping. So let's suppose I want to go on Amazon.in. Now, what I want to search here is I want to search HP laptop. Okay, try to understand the statement and then answer. Try to understand the question first of all, the statement that I'm going to ask. When I write over here laptop, when I write L, it gives me suggestions. You can see L, laptop, lights, LG, LED, so on and so forth. I've read A, it will give me correspondingly, more suggestions. I've read P, T, O, P over there. Then I've read HP. Then I've read 6 GB RAM. Right? I can write anything in the chat section, and correspondingly, respectively, it's going to give me the suggestion. Now, my simple question to all of you is here that as soon as I type something here, it actually executes an event. Do we all agree with that? That as soon as I actually write L, it triggers an event, maybe on key down input or on key up, on key press, depends on the developers that there are on Amazon. But of course, we know one thing for sure, that it's an event that is being triggered. Very good. After that, when I say A, when I say P, when I say T, O, P, and I will write something like this, whatever the search is. And for example, let's suppose all of these characters that I have typed in here, they are 20. How many? 20 or 30. So how many times event will be triggered? So if there are 30 characters here, how many times this event will be triggered? How many times? Of course, 30 times. Because we have seen our DOM HTML, we have seen HTML events, and we know if I write 30 characters here, it will be called 30 times no matter what. Of course, because that's the logic behind it. But can you guys tell me, in this particular scenario, when I'm trying to search, if anyone goes on the internet, tries to search, does L make sense? In searching a product, does only L make sense? Only L character makes sense? No, L does not make any sense. Does LA make sense? Maybe, but not entirely. Does P make sense? Maybe, but not entirely. So we know one very important thing, that when we try to search in these websites, if I try to search PA, it does not make any sense unless and until I make it completely panned. Which means that there is going to be an efficiency issue. Why? Because I know that a particular user will go on this website and they will try to find a particular item, and we know items have a proper word associated with them. Like for example, pant, it's a word. If I write P, it does not make any sense unless and until I completely make a complete word over here. So we need to understand one of the very important points over there, that in this cases over here, like in shopping websites or any other websites, where we are giving inputs, where events are triggered continuously, we would not want in such cases the event should be fired continuously. Does it make any sense to trigger an event on P as well, A as well, N as well, T as well? No, it makes sense when it's a pant, when it's a complete word. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Yes or no? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Now, it makes sense to trigger this event, to call an API to fetch this data over there only once a particular word is reached. Okay. Now, this is why efficiency comes into picture. And with respect to this, there are two methods that we have, two techniques. One is called debouncing, another one is called throttling. Both are same, and there's a minute difference only between them. Let me give you an idea like what debouncing in this case is. Tell me one thing. Here, I am trying to search laptop. Think about from the user's perspective and then answer. Okay, I am trying to buy a laptop. Do you think I will write L now, and then after 10 seconds I will write A, then after 10 seconds I will write P, then after 20 seconds I will write T, then after 30, so on and so forth, I will write something like this? No, I won't do that. I won't do that. I know one thing for sure, that if I am supposed to search a laptop, I will quickly write laptop like this in one go. And then once I wrote laptop, then I will take a pause. Yes or no? Yes or no? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? If I have to search laptop order, why will I write L first, then A after 20 seconds, then P after 20 seconds? No. I will take a pause. This is human nature. I will take a pause only once I will write a word, maybe. Then I will take a pause. That is the most appropriate scenario here. Now, debouncing says when there is a pause, a specific pause that you actually will mention, depending on the pause that you actually define. When the pause is there, then call it. Once I will write start typing L, I am writing A, P, T, O, P. Don't call it again. Unless and until there's a specified pause there. Because I know laptop will be there when I write laptop. When I am writing L, A, P, T, O, there's no sense of calling this API in this case. There's no sense of calling triggering this event in this case. When I write P, I will take a pause because that's my human nature. I will take a pause of 1 second maybe or half a second. So I will specify a particular time interval here and I will tell it once this pause is there in the activity that I am trying to execute here. In that activity, if there's a pause, then actually fetch an API, then actually trigger this event. This concept is called debouncing. Simple as that. So once we talk about debouncing, we can use any way of implementing it. It completely depends on you. That's why I said it's not a predefined method. It's a technique. Technique means anyone can implement it in any way. So you will simply tell it that if there's a pause inside the triggering of this event, half a second, then call it. And if I am typing L, A, P, T, O, P, and between typing these letters, I am not giving a pause of half a second. Don't trigger it until then. Unless and until I give a pause, then only trigger it. This concept is called debouncing. Am I clear? Am I clear? Do you understand what debouncing is, or do you want me to repeat? Do you want me to repeat? Right? If we have understood it, very good. Let's try to understand how I am going to implement it. Because it's a technique simply, and that's what we need to understand. Repeat, I will repeat it. Okay. But I will repeat it using my whiteboard. Please pay attention. Let's suppose there is this input field. Okay, same example I'm going to take. Same example. And over here, I have implemented a particular, what is this called, event. And that's called key down. And we know what key down event is. Yes or no? That as soon as key is pressed, it's going to trigger the event. It's going to call the function handler that's associated with it. And let's suppose on the key down, the function handler is actually printing adfar in the console. That's my name, right? So when I type A, what will be in the console? Adfar. Very good, because event is triggered. When I type D, adfar is there. When I type F, adfar is there. So as soon as I start typing inside this input field, we know one thing for sure, it's going to trigger an event. Because that's how events work. You perform an action, the event handler that's associated with it, it gets triggered. But debouncing says, why would I call this event again and again? Because I know ADF does not make sense. I know ADFAR makes sense for this input field. And then I know if I have to write another word, I will give a space. And then I will think, okay, what next I have to think? What next I have to type here? So maybe I will take 1 second of delay. So debouncing says, when I am writing key down, ADFAR, build between two triggers. If the time difference is not 1 second, it's not going to trigger it. If the time difference between writing A and D is not 1 second, don't trigger it. Trigger it only if the difference between triggering these two letters, triggering these two events is greater than the specified time. So there's a pause which you have mentioned, time interval which you have mentioned, then only invoke it. This is called debouncing. Am I clear? Am I clear? Am I clear? So what's going to happen in this case? Let's suppose I am supposed to search laptop. So what I'm doing, I'm writing L. Then timer will start. But before this time reaches, maybe I have actually implemented A in half a millisecond. So event will not be triggered. Adfar won't be displayed in the console. I will immediately after that P. I will immediately write T. So events are not triggered. So events are not firing unnecessarily. So I am writing O again, below 1 second. So the difference between T and O is not the greater than the time interval which I have mentioned. So I am writing P. Now once I wrote laptop, then I am taking a pause. Now, if the pause is greater than 1 second, which I have mentioned here, I can make this time as 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, depends on it. If the pause that I've taken is greater, then I will tell it, okay, now you have a word, laptop, now do a search for it. So it's not triggering, it's not calling the key down event on LAPTOP. No, but it is actually triggering it after a pause. Am I clear? Am I clear? Do we now understand what bouncing is? Do we understand what bouncing is? Roy says confused. Don't worry about it. I will remove the confusion. But rest of the students, am I clear? Give me a quick confirm in the chat and let's apply it. Then we will be able to understand it properly. Let's apply this particular technique. Yes, but confused. Let's remove that confusion by understanding a particular example. Let me create the same example here. I will say I have an input field with type is equals to text, and the ID is going to be, let's suppose, input. And over here, I will simply have a placeholder. Let's say a placeholder that will simply say enter something or whatever. Okay, enter something. After that, I have let's suppose what I would do is I would simply have an event on this. And whatever I am typing inside this, I would want that to be displayed in a div. So whatever I am typing inside the input field, I want that to be displayed in the div that I have. That's what I want. And let's suppose over here, I will put a ID called as output. So this is my simple structure for this web application. After that, I will simply go try to write JavaScript and I will add an event normally, how we used to add events. So I will simply go and tell it in my document, there is an element by ID, which is the ID. The ID is input. It of course means now I am finding this input field via the DOM model that I have whose ID is input. On that, please add an event listener. Now, what is the event that I am going to add on it? We talked about key down, so let me add key down here. Key down. Then after that, I know I will attach a function header with respect to it. And if at this point of time, I will simply tell it, give me console.log. And inside this console.log, I would simply want you to print adfer here. Okay. So what's happening here? I have an input field whose ID is input. I am reading that via my DOM model. And then I am adding an event listener to it, which is the event we are talking about, key down. And once this event will be triggered, a function callback function will be called, which is printing adfer in the console. And let's go live and let's try to understand how it works. It's a simple thing which we have already done before 100 times, right? So if I go here, if I go to inspect, if I go to console, let me type something here. I will write lap. When I say L, you can see adfer is being triggered. I write A, adfer is being triggered. P, adfer is being triggered. T, O, P. I will write anything, adfer is being called that many times. You can see that. So if I type 100 times here, correspondingly, respectively, adfer will be triggered that many times. Very good. Now, you guys tell me, let's suppose this input field that we have created here, this input field, it is implemented in Amazon or Flipkart or Snapdeal, these websites. When I write L, you can see it triggers adfer. It actually triggers the event. Maybe on this event, I am fetching an API. When I type A, it triggers the event again, it executes the function. But do you think on LA, it should actually fetch the results? Do you think that should that happen? That when I write LA, it should actually fetch the event? No, that should not happen. Why? Because LA does not make any sense with respect to Amazon, with respect to Snapdeal or Flipkart. Yes, when I write laptop, it makes sense. Or when I write lap, it makes sense. But in this scenario, I am typing it 6 times. It is triggering my event 6 times. So this is normal. So efficiency is not that much. So what should happen here? I will simply tell it, do one thing. L event is triggered, adfer is in the console. Try to understand what debouncing is. I will write L here. So let me remove this. Let me remove this. I will add L here. Done. Event is triggered, adfer. I will write A, adfer. But I will tell it, do not trigger the event. Do not call the function handler. If the time difference of triggering the first key down event and second key down is less than the specified time, less than the pause. If I give a pause. Now, when do we give pause in input typing? When I have written a word. So when I write laptop, then I will give a pause. Call it at that point of time. I am giving a pause of this second, then call it. Don't call it until then. This is debouncing. Am I clear? Am I clear? Do we understand what debouncing is? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Quickly, guys, quickly. Very good. Very good. I can see a lot of 100% implementing in the chat. Very good. Okay. Now let's understand it here with this example. Over here, instead of consoling adfer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it, let my input value. I'm going to get the input value from the input field. Input value is equals to, on my document, please get an element by id whose id is input. And let's do that. So get element by id, which is the id input, and from that input field I want you to give me the value attribute. Done. So whatever I'm typing inside the input field, I have stored that inside a variable called as input value. After that, I will tell it, on my document, please get another element by id which is output, right? And for this, please make its inner text, the inner text that we have, please make it is equals to what? Input value that I have. So what's happening here? When this key down will be executed, it is going to read the input value, whatever I'm typing inside that, and put it as an inner text inside this div. I think that's pretty much understandable, right? So let's go here and let's refresh the page and let me write something here. So I write laptop. So as soon as I write laptop here, you can clearly see it's triggering the event continuously. Continuously, it's triggering the event and executing it. Now I am going to make a small change here, very small change. I am going to start a timer. Okay. Instead of doing this directly, I will implement debouncing technique. So I will simply tell it, do one thing, define a timer. So let me define timer here. So let me say let my timer, and I'm going to initiate it with empty undefined. I'm not going to initialize it with something. It's empty. Let timer is equals to undefined at this point of time. Then when this event is triggered at that point of time, I'm going to update the timer with what? Set timeout. Because we know inside our JavaScript there's a web API called as timers, and there's a function which we have called as set timeout. It receives two arguments, although three, but it receives here two arguments. Number one is the function which you want to execute. Number two is the time interval. So let me define a function. So let's define a function like this. After a specified time. Now the timer, you decide. I'm not going to decide, you decide. As of now, I will keep it 1 second. You can change it later on. And in between, I am going to execute the stuff that we have. Okay. I am going to execute the stuff. Now see what's happening here. What's happening here? When on key down is actually executed, when on key is executed, it creates, updates a particular timer with a timer that we have of 1 second. And after 1 second, it's going to print the value. Okay. But if you look at this, there's one piece still missing. One piece still missing. I have implemented a simple, straightforward technique here, but there's still one piece missing. Please make sure you subscribe the channel right now and you like this video right now. Please do that. Okay. Now see, I will go here and I will trigger it. I will say adfer. Now, when I wrote adfer, you can clearly see there is a delay of 1 second, right? Although the delay is very much small, let's increase it. Let's make it 4 seconds as of now to see the visibility. So if I go here, if I simply go and write something like this, adfer, and after 4 seconds, it will print adfer as whole. Okay, you can see that. Even let me do one thing. Let me print console. So console.log, let's say something like this. Okay. And let's go in the output that we have. Let me refresh this. I will say adfer. So once I write adfer over there, you can see after 4 seconds, adfer will be in the console. And how many times event got triggered? 5 times. How many times event got triggered? 5 times. Why? Because we are just telling it to delay the event execution. Try to understand this. Don't you think that? I am as of now telling it when key down is triggered, delay the function execution by 4 seconds. I'm not doing anything else. So this is not debouncing. This is simply delaying. But what is it that we exactly want? Let's understand that here. And you will give me answer in the chat. And if you give me answer, I will be very happy. Honestly, I will be very happy. This is what we want. Let's suppose I simply want inside the input field, simple thing. I want that when I write L, event should be triggered very wonderfully. And when I write A, if the difference between these two triggering is 1 second, I mean greater than 1 second, call it. If it is not, then in that case, don't call it. This is what we want. And let's suppose I have typed L at 1 second. Then I have typed A at, let's suppose our time is 4 seconds instead of 1 second. I have typed, this is L, this is A at 3 seconds, right? So is the difference between 1 and 3 seconds greater than 4? No, it's 2 seconds only. So it won't trigger. But I will type after that P at 8 seconds, or let's say 6 seconds. Now, do you think the difference between L and L and P is greater than 4 seconds? Yes or no? L and P, is it greater than 4 seconds? Yes or no? Yes or no? L and P, is it greater than 4 seconds? Yes, because it's 5 seconds. But that's not what we are talking about. We are talking about the difference between A and P. Don't you think when I type L, timer should start? When I type A, at that point of time, it should find the difference. But also, if the difference is not greater than this, it should not call it. But also, when I type P, at that point of time, a new timer has to be started, because it should not compare with the L timers. It should compare, this P should compare itself with the A timer. Yes or no? When I say L, A, P, T, this should compare with the P timer, right? So every single time a new letter is involved in this case, a timer should reset itself. If the time is not mentioned, the timer should reset itself. That's why what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to go over here and I will tell it, if there is already a timer, whenever key down, in that case, please remove the timer. What am I doing? If there's a timer already, remove the timer. So we can clear the previous set timeout using timer ID by using clear timeout function. Exactly, that's what we are going to do, go in. Very good. So we have to clear, because we want to compare it with the latest event. We don't want to compare it with final or all the aspects. No, but latest. So if I go here and if I try to now go here and write, let me simply go here and let me write, instead of 4 seconds, I will say 2 seconds. Okay. So now if I go here and I will write ADFAR. And unless and until I am not going to give a pause of 2 seconds, you can see it's not calling my event. So unless and until I do not give a pause of 2 seconds, because every single time I am typing something, it's clearing at the same time as well. So as long as I'm not giving a pause of 2 seconds, it's not going to call my event that we have. So now if I remove it, you can clearly see it actually executes. And not only that, it triggers the event only once. Don't you think this is best? This technique is best efficiency wise. This is what debouncing means. Simple as that. There's no other concept that we have of debouncing. I have elongated it too much. It's a small, short concept, but I have given you a better understanding of it. Am I clear? Am I clear? Do we understand what debouncing means? Please like this video right now. Please like this video right now. Okay? Please do that. So we have to understand that we have learned concepts properly. I know how to put an event on a particular function. I know, I'm pretty much sure about that, right? We all know that. But now the same events, why would we trigger same event again and again? So we have to put efficiency there. And that's what debouncing will do. So you can clearly see, as of now, I am typing ADFAR. Then when I give a pause of 2 seconds, then event is triggered. Although in most of the cases, timer is not 2 seconds. Timer is half a second. Flipkart, I think in Flipkart, it is 300 milliseconds. Maybe, I'm not completely sure, but something like that. So timer has to be very small. It should not be 2 seconds, right? Because sometimes you will lose the information if the time is very big. So I will simply say at the front, if time is small, it executes it. I will write something, time is small, it executes it. So this concept inside our JavaScript is called debouncing, one of the very important concepts. Moving towards the second concept that we have called throttling, which does the same thing, exactly same thing, but there's a small minute change. And as I said, both of them are techniques. And when we say technique, what does that mean? That means it's not about how we implement it. It's about the conclusion, the outcome that will be achieved from it. So the outcome of debouncing is, unless or until there's not a pause inside the execution of the event, don't call it, don't trigger the event. That's what the outcome should be. Now, how you implement it, it's completely up to you. Completely up to you. So it's about outcome. That's why we say technique. We do not say it's a concept or it's some predefined functionality inside of a JavaScript. We don't say that. Why? Because it's a technique. Doesn't matter how you implement it. The only agenda, the only outcome is that unless and until there's no pause inside the execution of events, it should not trigger it. Ramesh Lal says, awesome explanation. Thank you so much. But sir, we not use debouncing and we can use that until the user will not click on search icon. But that is something else. See, over here inside Amazon, search will search, it will fetch new API. But over here, see, if I talk about LAP, don't you think it's already doing something at the bottom? Search is something different in this case, in this example. Search is fetch the data from the API, make this a query, and get me results. But if I talk about this, let's suppose I have to search house appliances or housewarming gifts, which is already being triggered here. So why would I not put debouncing in this case? I hope that makes sense. Okay. Please make sure you like this video right now, you share it and subscribe it with your friends. Okay. Thank you so much. Moving forward to our another example of throttling. Let me create one other file with the name of throttling.js. Sorry, not JS, HTML. So rename HTML. And let's understand what throttling is. As I said, throttling and debouncing both are same. The purpose is same. The only difference is debouncing says unless and until, and listen to this point and note it down. Debouncing says unless and until there is not pause in the action that I'm performing, don't call it. So if there's a pause that I have mentioned of half a second, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, then execute it. Throttling says, I won't talk about pause, but I will tell you in this time frame, event should be triggered only once. So if I trigger an event, after that, in 1 second time, event should not be triggered again. That's the definition of throttling. So it's not about pause, it's simply throttling says in this time frame, I will call my event only once, that's it. I'm not going to call it again. It will be called only after 1 second. It will be called only after 2 seconds, the time that I mentioned. Simple definition, simple difference. That's what we mean by throttling. And the only agenda is now to understand how to implement it. Let me repeat again. Please note it down. Debouncing says, unless and until there's not pause of the mentioned time that I have given it, don't call it. Don't invoke this event. On the other hand, throttling says, within a given time frame of within a time interval, call it only this time. Call it only once, but in the specified time. So it will be called only 2 seconds, after 2 seconds, after 3 seconds, after 4 seconds. But if we talk about debouncing, it's about pause, the pause we mentioned. Okay, and as I said, it's also a technique. It's all about outcome that we implement. Okay, let's implement it. I will use the same example that we have. So I will go and define input with the ID input that we have. And let me give the placeholder to this, and that placeholder enters something. Okay, and then I will simply have a div whose ID is output like this. Okay, now what do I want to do? I want to execute an event in a specified amount of time. That's it, nothing else. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to think of a strategy. It's all about how you understand the code and how you create the logic. What's the logic in this case? That in this time interval, don't call it again. For example, the time that I have mentioned is 1 second. So in 1 second, event should be triggered only once. And once I trigger it, after that, for that time interval, it will never be allowed to execute again. It will be called only after that in a specified amount of time. This is what I mean. Maybe I'm not able to explain it properly, but let me tell you what I mean. Let's suppose this is my time scale that we have. And the throttling delay that I have mentioned over here, let's suppose it's 2 seconds. The throttling delay that I have mentioned, it's 2 seconds. So which I will write 2000 milliseconds. And over here, let's suppose I will actually trigger my event. So event is triggered over here. And after this, of course, I have 2 seconds, let's suppose here. So this is the point P, which is from here to here, it's 2 seconds of time. Now, according to throttling, can you tell me, will I be able to execute this event in between of this interval anywhere? Will I be able to execute anywhere? Yes or no? I won't be, right? That's what throttling says. That between this and this, if the time is 2 seconds, I should not be allowed to execute again. And then, yes, I can execute it after this anytime. So maybe I will execute the event here. So this is my event 2, this event 1, this event 2. And after that, it's P2, it's P1. So this is 2 seconds also, this time delay. Will I be allowed to execute my event here? No, I won't be. So what's the logic? The logic is simply, when the event is triggered, at that point of time, find out what the time is. Find what the time is. Okay? At this point of time, when the event is triggered, find out what the time is. At that point of time, using the date object, if you remember, we have new date object. So we can find whenever a function is called at that point of time, what is the time? We can use a date.now function. Give me the exact date when this function was called, date.now. We can use that, which will tell me what this time is. After that, I will simply see when the second event is called between E2 and E1, if the time delay is greater than the throttling delay, then call it. If it is less than this, don't call it. Simple logic. Simple mathematics. Simple mathematics that we have. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So now let's try to implement it here. So what I will do is, can we think of previous, then, and current time? You can do that as well. That's what I'm going to do. Previous, current time, last execution time, throttling delay, current execution time, whatever you think, whatever technique you get in your mind, however you can implement it. As I said, it's about outcome. So let me go and let me try to see how I will implement it. I will implement it in a very simple way. So let me go and let me implement script in which, let's suppose for my discussion, since I have to implement the mathematics here, I will tell it for my discussion, when the last time execution happened at that point of time, the execution time that which I had was 0 seconds, because it has to be started from somewhere, and I will start it from 0, because for the first execution it has to be implemented. When the event will be triggered once, at that point of time, should this be implemented? No, I will simply make it 0 for the first. So I have made it 0. After that, I will define another variable, which is our how much time interval we want. So let me say throttling delay is as of now 2 seconds. I will make it smaller later on, but as of now it's 2 seconds. After that, I will tell it on my document, please get an element by ID whose ID is input field. Very good. And on that, please add an event listener. And what is the event listener that we are talking about? Key down. So let me add key down. So key down is the event listener. On that, I would simply want it to call a function like this, like this, like this, like this. Done. Now see what I'm trying to say. This key down, when it is called, it has to make sure that it will trigger this function only if the previous execution call of this event and the current execution call is greater than the time interval. Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Yes or no? Quick confirmation in the chat. Please and please. So it means that this key down, now when I put this key down, it will be called only under one condition. When the previous execution and this execution of two events is greater than the current throttling delay that we have. That's why I will simply say let my current time. The current time that we have, or current now execution that we have, is equals to, as I said, the function that we use is date.now. Okay. So we have a function over here which is date.now method. Okay. Then I will simply use if else, because that's what we are going to do. If else, if my current time that I have minus the last execution call, the last execution time that I have, if it is greater than throttling delay that we have, then in that case, please execute your code, whatever you are trying to do. Simple mathematics. Now we will say, sir, no, last execution time is 0. No, I will update it later now. I will update it with current now. I will talk about that. But as of now, this is the condition. If my current time of this execution minus the last execution time of the last event is greater than throttling delay, then execute the code. And what is the code? I will simply say let my input value. So let my input value is equals to on my document, please get an element by ID. And what is that ID? It is input. From that, please find its value like this. From that, please find its value. And after that, I will simply take on my document, right? So on my document, please get an element by ID. What is the ID? It is the input ID, output ID. And on this output ID, what am I going to do? I'm going to make its inner text is equals to what? Is equals to my input value that we have. Now tell me what next I will do. There's one line of code which I'm missing. What is that? Come on, I need few answers. There's one small line of code which I'm missing here. What's that answer? Quickly tell me, quickly. There's one small line of code which I'm missing here. What is that? Very good, Govind. Anyone else? Anyone else? I have to update my last execution time. Last execution time, I have to update it with my current execution time that we have. Why? Because when this code will be executed again, it won't compare this with 0, but with the last execution of the event that we have. Now, with this code, what have we actually made sure of? What have we exactly made sure of? We have made sure of one thing, which is that in this case, my event will be triggered only once in a specified given amount of time. In a specified given amount of time, it will be called only once. So let's go in the console now and let's try to execute and see how it works. So I will go here and I will simply talk about this. So I will say ADFAR. Then you can see ADFAR in the console. Why is it not in the console, by the way? Sorry, here. Let me see if console works and have I missed anything. So ID is input, get element by ID, input, input, input. Let's do one thing. Whenever your things do not work at that point of time, use console, okay? Always, because that's what I have always said. Console.log. Let me use, instead of consoling any string, let's suppose I will console my current now to see what is in the output. So I will go and write S. Okay, so there's a time, but it's not making it as input value of the div, which means it's being called properly. My function works. If I go here, if I write something like this, you see it's not completely working, but after 2 seconds, it executes its code. So our throttling is properly implemented. You can see that after every 2 seconds, it's calling the function. After every 2 seconds, it's calling the key down. After every 2 seconds, it's calling the function. So our throttling is properly working, and you can clearly see it's properly implemented over here as well. Perfectly fine. Wonderful. I hope we have understood both concepts of throttling and debouncing. So tell me, if anyone asks you this question in the interview, will be able to explain it? Yes or no? We will be able to explain it properly? I think we should be, right? So with this, we have completed these two topics properly. Now we will move to a different concept here, which we have missed in our previous class. Our agenda was to discuss that in our previous class, but now we are going to discuss it. We know a concept of web APIs, do we? First of all, give me a quick confirmation. Are we comfortable with debouncing and throttling? I want all the 30 students to type in the chat. Am I completely okay? It will check every single time. It's going to evaluate, do the mathematics. Yes, it will do that. And mathematics is not that big task for our computer. It's a very small task. It's a simple if statement, nothing else. Okay, perfectly fine. Please make sure you like this video right now, okay? Now we are going to discuss another very important topic, which is called local storage. And let me try to make you understand what local storage is. Because event fetching, think of this, Said. I am as of now doing a small task, okay, which is I am simply telling you to make it in a text, okay, simple thing. Think of whenever I type inside this, at that point of time, fetch data from an API. Now, data can be a very big data as well. Now, tell me, instead of fetching data every single time, I will tell it to fetch the data after 2 seconds, 2 seconds. How efficient it will be? Very much. How efficient it will be? Very much. So that's what we have, right? And there's DOM also as well. DOM comes into picture because DOM is very slow. It refreshes, remodels, repaints everything. And when there's a change, we'll talk about that in our tomorrow's class when we start our React. Remember one thing, tomorrow we are starting our React class. Okay. So we will be joined by new students. I'm pretty much sure that there are at least 50 students who are going to join, new 50 students. So please make sure to join on time tomorrow. We are going to start our free library of JavaScript, which is React, from tomorrow. So I hope everyone is excited for that. Okay. So let's start. Okay. In one of the classes that we have, when we discussed JavaScript, asynchronous JavaScript under the hood, remember that particular class? In that particular class, we understood when we talk about the web development, the strongest part of JavaScript relies in browser, and we call them web APIs, right? For example, when we talked about timers, is a web API, right? We talked about fetch, is a web API. We talked about console is a web API. Similarly, browser has one of the other very important strong superpower, and that is called local storage. If you go inside your browser, let's suppose this is my browser, or not, let's suppose it is my browser. So if I go to application, you can see a lot of storages. So browser gives you two types of storages. When we talk about this, it's local storage, session storage. We are interested in local storage. So you can see this one of the object or storage here. It's called a local storage. And if I open it, although this, you can clearly see that there's this endpoint that we have. And as of now, it has no key value pairs. But what is this local storage? Let's try to understand that. Local storage is simply a storage that a browser can offer to your domain. Browser can offer to your website, the website that you create, in which you can store your things, you can store your data locally on that system. Now, when we say locally, that's the most important thing. What we mean by locally? Locally means that data will be stored on that computer only. It cannot be stored on any other computer. So wherever you are working, wherever that website is open, if you try to store the data using local storage, the data will be stored inside that local system only. If you later on go to some other system, you will say, okay, I already had stored my data. No, it won't be there. It is local to that system that we have. That's what's called a local storage. Even if you then close the tab, you come after 1 year to the same system, you restart your system, it will always be there. So local storage is whatever is stored inside it, it does not vanish automatically unless and until you delete it. But it is local to your system. So there are a lot of things that we try to store locally on a website. For example, if I go here, maybe I might be wrong here. Let's go Amazon.in. Let's see if this website stores something on local storage or not. So I will go to application and I will go to local storage. You can clearly see that there are these key value pairs that when you go to Amazon.in, when you try to log in and do all this stuff, Amazon actually stores some key value pairs on your local system. Will these key value pairs be for your system as well? Maybe, maybe not. But different, of course, different. It's for your local system. This is for my local system. Local, of course, local storage will be always there unless or until you delete it deliberately. Session storage, whatever is stored there, it will be deleted as soon as that session ends. Okay, so yes, they are different. Not how they store data, but what they do with the data. Local storage will store the data. Doesn't matter whether you switch off your system, whether you come back to the same system after 1 year, 2 years, doesn't matter. But session storage, as soon as that session ends, our data deleted. But local storage will keep the data. Now, it's very important for us to understand how we can store our data if we talk about local storage. There are 4 methods that you have to remember. Only 4 methods. How to store data, how to read data, how to delete data. And in deletion, there are 2 methods. That's why I said 4 methods. So there are some people who are screaming outside of my house. They might be trying to sell something. So please ignore that, okay? Or I will mute for a second. Okay, I'm back. So what I will do is I will simply create an input field, or let's create a form. And inside this form, I will simply go and try to create input field. So let me create input field with type text, and over here I will have a placeholder. And this placeholder will have simply, let's say, username. Okay. And I will have an ID over here as well, which is username itself. Done. And after that, I will give one other input field, which is password. So let's suppose these are the 2 things which we want to store inside our output local storage that we have. Sorry, browser's local storage that we have. And they should be updated. They should be put inside that local storage once I click on button. And that button is simply log in or sign up, whatever, right? And we have our type for this button is submit. So I will simply go make a submit type here. Now, there's one concept which we have discussed when we were discussing DOM, which was form submission. Whenever we try to submit a form, it has a default nature to it, right? And what is the default nature? Tell me in the chat. In the meantime, let me write JavaScript here. Okay. And inside this JavaScript, what am I going to do? I'm simply going to make sure that when I click on login, whatever I type inside the input field whose ID is username, and whatever I type inside the input field whose ID is email, they should be stored inside that particular local storage. Okay. And let's understand this. I need to read 2 values. So I will simply say let my user name is equals to on my document please get an element by id, and that id is username, and from that please read its value. Done. Second thing is let my email is equals to what? On my document please get an element by id, and that id is email, and please try to store it inside this variable called as email. So I have defined two variables here. Done. After that, I will tell it on my button. So on my document, please get an element by ID, and that ID is equals to btn. On that ID, please add an event. So add event listener, and that event listener is on submit, or let's say submit, right? And then I will simply tell it to call a function like this, like this, like this. Now, when we talk about form submission, what's the first thing that I'm going to do here? Whenever we talk about form submission, what is the first thing that we keep in our mind? Quickly tell me. What is the first thing that we do when we talk about form submission? Whenever we talk about form submission, let's suppose I want to see console.log adfer. Okay, and let's go live with this particular web page. This is my email, this is my password, right? I will go to inspect and I will simply say console. And according to the code that I have written, I have told it on the element whose ID is button, please add an event submit. And whenever it is submitted, please console adfer, right? And if I go here, let me type username, whatever the username is. Let's type password, email, whatever the email is, and I will log in. As soon as I log in, you can see console adfer was there for a minute second, and now it vanishes. So what do we need to do here when we talk about form submission? When we talk about form submission, what do we do here? Very good. We prevent the default nature of it, because the default nature of form submission is it actually will refresh the whole page. So whatever it is supposed to do, it will do that, but immediately it will refresh the page. So that's why we have to prevent the default nature of form submission. So I will simply go here, pass a variable event, which is e.prevent default. Now, before I move forward, I need one another answer here. Okay. And I have taught you all of these things. That's why I'm asking you this question. What is this E? Or yeah, I can name this event as well. What is this argument that we have? Quickly, I need few answers. What is this E? We know that whenever we have an event defined on an element, as soon as we talk about the event, it actually creates an event object around that, which holds all the information about that event, event.target, event.type, event.key, event.xyz things. So it simply creates an event object around that event which we are trying to perform. So that's what E is, and we have already discussed it. Now, if I go here and if I try to console something, so console.log, let's suppose console.log something like this. And now if I go here, as soon as I click on login here, it is still refreshing the page. Why is that? So let me type something like this. Let me type something like login. It is still refreshing the page. Why is that? What is the issue that we have? So on submit e.prevent default. Okay, so I am writing this whole script in form. So let me remove this, put it here. Done. So now if I go here and let me write login, it is still refreshing the page. Come on, guys. What is the issue? It is still refreshing the page. Although let me do one thing, whether it's calling this event or not. So let me use the 3G here. And if I click on console login, it's not even printing anything. Why is that? No, it's not printing anything. It's not calling the event. It's not consoling this. So document.get element by ID, which is btn, on that, please add an event listener, which is submit. And I have the event which is console.log, right? The on submit event is not working. Let me add click event. Click event is properly working, but submit event is not working. Why? Please figure out that, okay? Because we might figure it out right now, but it will take some time. Event on which it's called, okay? So now, if I click on login, you can clearly see inside my console, now it is there. But if we do not prevent default nature, it's going to refresh the entire page, which is completely fine. Now, whatever username I will type here, whatever email I will type here, the agenda is when we click on login, as soon as I click on login, it should be stored inside the local storage of this particular website that we have. For that, we use an API called as local storage. And on local storage, we use few methods. So when we talk about this local storage, the first method that we talk about is set item. It receives two arguments. Number one is the key name. Number one is the key name. So let's suppose the key name is username. Second thing is the value of it. And what is the value? The value that we are trying to store is username. So when the click event will be triggered on button type submit, you will say, sir, why submit event was not working? In that case, you can change this button to input field type submit. That will work. Okay, that is the issue here. That was the issue. We sometimes this submit does not work on button. So make it input type submit, it will work 100%. Okay, now pay attention here. So now if I go here, the method which I have called is local storage or set item. Remember, set item is a method on local storage which we can use to create key value pair inside the local storage. And over here, the key name and the value. Key name is username, value is username, which I am simply getting from here as a value inside the input field whose ID is username. So now if I go here, let me type my username as Adfar, email as this, and I will log in simply when I logged in. Although I'm not able to get the value, that's something else which we will figure out. But you can clearly see right now I am able to create something inside my local storage. There is something inside my local storage that we have. So this is how we set an item inside our local storage. So let me remove this username with, as of now, Adfar directly instead of connecting it with the input field. So now I will go here, and as soon as I click on login, you can clearly see key value pair got created, which is username is equals to Adfar. Now we have to understand why this was not working in our previous case. So if this is my username, document.get element by ID, which is username, and from it, please get the value. So let me see if I go and instead of reading the value here, let me do one thing, username dot value. And why was it not working? So let me write Adfar and let's click on RRR and let me log in. Now it works. Okay. No, it works. It will work. It will treat it as a string. We will parse or stringify it later on in 2-3 minutes. We will do that. But as of now, you can clearly see I have created key value pair inside my output. Similarly, what I can do is I can go here. Okay. I can go here. Now, why was it not working? Can anyone tell me why was it not working like this? Why? Anyone? Why was not it working? Why was it putting empty string in the local storage in front of username key? Why was that? Because when this JavaScript got executed, it executed this already. And at that point of time, the value of the input field was empty. So it already made username as empty string, my email is empty string. And when I clicked on that, at that point of time, username was empty. And that's what it's stored in the local storage that we have. That's why I actually changed it with this, because we have to read the value inside the function, not outside of the function. So that's why I wrote value here. I hope this makes sense. I hope you have completely understood why it did this. Similarly, I will go local storage dot set item. And what is the item? I will write email here. And then the value of that is email dot value. And now if I go here and try to write my username as Adfar, email as a@a.com, click on login, you can clearly see inside my local storage, two key value pairs got created. One is Adfar, another one is a@a.com, which is email. Done. And let's suppose there's a button and that button says log out. Okay. And I will create a button and that button says simply log out. Now, when we talk about this log out, what it is supposed to do, it's simply supposed to remove the data from my local storage that we have. Right? So we need to understand that I will simply go and create logout ID here, and I will simply go and tell it on my document there is an element by ID who is my logout, and then in that case please call a function. Sorry, not that with this. We have to add an event listener on this logout, and then on this please add an event listener. And in that event listener, the event listener is going to be click, and then we will simply call a function like this. And in this case, what is it supposed to do? It is supposed to remove the data from the local storage that we have. And in terms of local storage removing, there are two methods. Always remember that. Two methods. Number one is remove item. Number two is clear. Local storage gives you two methods to remove the data from the local storage. Number one method is local storage dot remove item. Now, when we talk about remove item, it receives an argument, the key name which you want to remove. In this case, I will simply pass username. Now, see, I will go inside the console here, and I have a logout button. There is a username Adfar. If I click on this, you can clearly see username got removed. So one of the very simple methods is I will simply use a remove item method, pass the key name to it, and as soon as that method is executed, the key name, if it exists inside our local storage, it will be removed. So I will simply go here and click on this logout. You can clearly see email is now removed as well because there was only email. So this is one of the very important methods. Another method is I will go here and I will write my email like this, and there are multiple key value pairs. So this username Adfar, email a@a.com. And in case I want to clear the entire local storage in one line, in that case, we have a method, and that method is called from a local storage. We simply have clear. It does not receive any argument. The whole agenda is to clear the entire local storage that we have. So I am simply going to, let's suppose, comment this line of code here. So let me comment this, comment this. So we have a single method called as local storage.clear here. And this method is simply going to allow me to entirely clear the whole local storage that we have. So when we click on logout, you can clearly see it clears the entire local storage. I hope these two methods make sense. Set item as well as clear item as well as remove item. So there are three methods which we have discussed. Set item receives two arguments because we have to pass the key name and the value to it. Another one is remove item, receives only one argument which we want to remove. Another one is clear. Let's suppose over here another thing is I have an h1 tag, and that h1 tag says username colon. In front of this username, I want to display the username. Okay. Or even let's not keep the content here. I simply want in this h1 whose ID is data. In this h1 or in this div, let me make it a div. In this div, I want to simply display data from the local storage. But which means I want to read the data from the local storage that we have. So there's already data inside my local storage. I want to read it. So in that case, I will go and I will tell it, do one thing. From my local storage, or let's create a variable. So, or I will simply say that in my document, or let's create a variable, let my element is equals to on my document. Please get an element by ID, and that ID is, what is the ID? It is data. After that, I will simply create a button, and that button is read data. Okay. Or I will simply say the ID of this is profile. Okay. And then over here, I will tell it on my document, please get an element by ID, and that ID is profile. Okay. Now over here, please add an event listener, and that event listener is click to it like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. And what it is supposed to do, it is supposed to make the read the data from the local storage. So what am I going to do? I'm simply going to on my element, please make its inner HTML. And in the inner HTML, I will go and I will tell it to make as template literals, in which I will simply pass my h1 tag, and I will tell it username is equals to, then I have to read the entity of JavaScript, which is from my local storage, please get an item. And what is the item? The item key name. So we have to read the data. That's why I have wrote get item. Read the data from the local storage. Right? And after that, I will go here and let me close my h1 tag. Done. And not only that, I will add another h2 tag in which it's simply going to mention email, and that is going to be from my local storage. Please get an item, and that item is my email. And then I'm simply going to go here and read the h2 that we have. So what do we have? We simply are telling it that in the button whose ID is profile, add an event listener click at that point of time, the element which is data, which is this div, for it make the inner HTML as h1 username, read the data from the local storage, where the key name is username. Similarly, make the h2 tag where the email, read the data from the local storage, where get item is email. And now let's see how it works. The first thing is I will set the data. So as for this, I have logged in. Then I will click on read data. When I click on read data, it actually refreshes the whole page. I don't know why, but let's try to figure it out. So let's say for a added of this login done, read the data. But when I read the data, it refreshes the entire page. So what's the issue? What is the issue that we have? See, I am able to read the data perfectly fine. You can see if I try to slow the network that I have, so slow 3G, read the data, username, for email a@a.com, but eventually it vanishes here. So what am I going to do here? I am going to make sure to prevent the default nature. Although we need to understand that, okay, so basically this button is inside form. Sorry. So Control X and let me make it here. Okay. Now let's see. Read data. Now it will not vanish. So it was inside form. That's why it had a default nature of refreshing the entire page. Now I have taken the button outside of my form, and now we can clearly see we have username displayed in the output. We have email displayed in the output. So we have read our data properly as well. I hope it makes sense. Am I clear, guys? Am I clear? Do we have any questions in these four methods? So local storage comes up with four methods: set item to create the key value pairs, get item to read the data, remove item to remove a particular item, and clear to clear the entire data. So we will take a break of 10 minutes now. And after 10 minutes, we are going to resume one small entity which is called a JSON. Then we will go to call, bind, and apply, and then we will understand function querying. So let me create a 10-minute timer, and we will take a break of 10 minutes. Do not leave the class. Stay here in the break as well. Please make sure you like this video, subscribe the channel right now. Session ends. Session ends, it depends. Sometimes it depends on time, and sometimes it depends on the tab. That's something else, okay? So we'll take a break of 10 minutes, and after 10 minutes, we are going to start our class again, and we are going to discuss something very important. So please make sure you stay here, even in the break. Do not leave the class, and come back. If you leave, come back after 10 minutes. See you guys after 10 minutes. Bye. Hey guys, hi everyone, welcome back. I hope I'm audible as well as visible. Am I? Because there's only one thing that you need to do, Govind, just practice as much as you can. Trust me, when I was a fresher, I used to feel in the same way, but as soon as I started practicing every day, I brought the discipline in my life. Trust me, now I don't have that, scareness in me. So I'm pretty much confident that I will be able to answer all of the questions, but it comes up with practice. As much as you practice, this will be there, okay? So that's what you need to do. Mrigor says he looks like a good teacher. I guess I am. Maybe I have pronounced your name correctly. I'm so sorry for that, but I think we are good, right? So it was awesome journey being part of this batch from day one. I thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. But I think we can work without that as well, right? Perfect. So I think we can move forward now, and we can start a little bit ahead and talk about this local storage. See, as of now, if you look at this local storage, we have created two key value pairs here, email and username. Email being at a@a.com, username being adfar. But you can clearly understand that these are two entities that we are trying to store inside our local storage. Instead of that, why don't we store it as a single object? This is what I mean. When we try to set it up, instead of creating it like that, I will not do it. But what I will do is I will store only one key in which I will simply say data. And then over here, I will pass object as an argument, where I will have username dot value, comma, username, sorry, email dot value. So these are the two key value pairs that I have passed, right? In which I will pass this as username key, another one as email key. So this is going to be email. So right now, what I have done is I have done a small thing here, which is instead of storing them separately as two separate key value pairs as username and email, I have directly stored it as an object. And let's see how it works right now. I will go here and I will clear out the data first of all. Let's set up the username and email here. And I will click on login. Now, when I click on login, you can clearly see there is a key value inside our local storage with the name of data, and you can see object to object. But is this what we stored? Yes, this is what we stored. But you need to understand, whenever our local storage is expecting a particular object as a value of any key, local storage is expecting it to store as a JSON entity, not as the direct JavaScript object. Local storage tells you to, okay, give me it as an object, but make it a JSON object first of all. So if you will be able to store JavaScript object, but you will not be able to visualize it properly here. It won't be like that. So the best and the most simple solution that we can have over here is we can store it as a JSON entity whenever our intention is to store it as a JavaScript object. That's why whenever we have our agenda like this, instead of storing it like this, what I will do is I will use JSON.stringify method. Now, what is the JSON.stringify method? JSON.stringify method is simply the argument which we pass here to this particular method. It will convert that particular argument into a JSON entity. Now, if I go here and if I try to log out, or if I try to simply remove the data, which I have done, now I will write email, username, and this, and I will log in. Now, once I log it in, you can clearly see I am able to visualize my object as well. So in this case, it is a JSON entity that we have. And this is always our agenda, that we will try to store our data inside our local storage as an object, but as a JSON entity. And whenever we have to convert our normal object into our JSON object, in that case, we use a method called as stringify. Remember this method, stringify. Now there's a button which says read data, right? And when we click on read data, it is supposed to put the data in the H1 tag. As of now, is there a key with a username? No, there's no key. There's no key that we have with a username key name that we have. There's a key which is data. And what if I will simply put data here? Will that work? No, it won't work. Why? Because you will say, sir, no, we have data as an object. It's an object. So data is not a string that we have. So if we go here in the output that we have, you can clearly see, as of now, when I click on read data, you can see username is equal to JSON entity, which is completely, of course, correct here. And we all can see that my data is complete JSON entity. And when we try to read it, it's completely there. Perfectly fine. But do I want to display adfer or do we want to display the whole JSON entity? We want to display the adfer there. So that's why in most of the cases, what we will do is we'll try to convert it back to our object. So instead of storing directly like this, I will simply say let my data is equals to on my JSON. I am going to use parse method. Stringify converted my JavaScript object into JSON object. Parse method is going to convert back the conversion. It's going to convert the JSON object into JavaScript object that we have. So I will simply go here and I will simply tell it on my local storage dot data, local storage dot get item. So let me simply pass get item and data. Now, is this data variable an object or a JSON object? It's an object. Why? Because I have used a parse method. So in local storage or in any other method, when we try to fetch a data and we are fetching data from the JavaScript API and it is properly a JSON entity, we try to convert into a normal JavaScript object, because in JavaScript we deal with objects, not with JSON in most of cases. That's why we have to convert it back to our JavaScript object, and for that we use parse method. So these are the two very important methods that you should know: parse and stringify. Stringify converts into JSON entity, parse converts back into JavaScript object. And now instead of putting here local storage dot get item, I will simply tell it data dot username. Simple. Yes or no? Data dot username. Similarly, I will go here data dot email like this. Simple. Why? Because right now it's an object and we can access it using dot notations. So now if I go here and if I try to read data, you can clearly see username adfer and email a@a.com. I hope it makes complete sense. I hope we have completely understood what local storage is. So give me a quick confirmation in the chat before I move forward. Give me a quick confirmation. So can we not do data.username without parsing? We can, but we should not, right? Because we, as I said, we are familiar with our JavaScript objects. There are a lot of methods that we can implement on JavaScript objects. You have barely few of the methods you can implement on JSON, right? So it's always better to actually display proper JavaScript entities on website. So do that. Okay, do that only. Moving forward. Okay, thank you so much, my Muhammad Idris, for doing this. I'm not sure. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. Bye. Perfect. Moving forward. So we can see over here, we have understood local storage. Now I'm going to move towards one another very important topic called as function querying. Now, 20 days back, only 20 days back, I gave an interview in one of the companies, and there was a question that was asked to me from this topic. And they asked me only one JavaScript question. Trust me. They asked me to give a demo on few of the topics. I gave that. Then they gave me a code problem. And that was related to this concept that I'm going to teach you, which is function querying. So let's understand what querying in the first place is. So querying.javascript. Querying is simply a concept in which we try to break our website's arguments, multiple arguments, into singular arguments. Okay. Let me give an example. Simple example. So I have a function called as multiply. Okay, and what it does is it simply receives three arguments, x, y, z. And over here, what this function is supposed to do, it's simply supposed to return x into y into z. So what is this function doing? Simply multiplying three arguments that are passed to it. And these are multiple arguments that we have. And over here, I will go and I will write multiply and put three arguments, 3, 4, 5. And let me simply put it inside a variable. So let my result is equals to something like this. So if I execute it, what will be the output? So result over 3 into 4 is 12. 12 into 5 is 60, right? So if I execute it, we can clearly see it gives me 60. This is normal function that we have. But the same function that is multiple arguments can be converted into a curry. A curry is a dish, I guess. I'm not sure, but curry, right? It can be converted into a curry. How? This is what I'm going to do. I will define a normal function which is multiply. And instead of telling it to actually do everything in one return statement, I'm going to break it into multiple functions. This is what I'm going to do. Same function that I have, I will make it multiply, and I will pass only one argument, which is x. Then over here, I will tell it to return another function that we have, in which I'm going to pass argument y. Then in this case, I'm going to tell it to return another function that we have. And in this case, I will pass z. And then over here, I'm going to tell it to return. What is it going to return? My x into y into z. So what am I doing over here? I am actually dividing my function that I have defined from line number 1 to 3 into a curry of functions. This is what we mean by function currying. To divide my multiple arguments into single arguments, right? And that's why I'm doing it. So now if I have to call it, how will I call it? So let me try to comment it. And if I call it like this, do you think it will actually execute itself? So if I execute it, you can clearly see it gives me function anonymous. Usage, I will give you usage in 2 minutes. That's why I talked about interview question. I will talk about that as well, go within a few minutes. So we have multiply 3, 4, 5. And right now, when I executed it, you can clearly see it is a function which is anonymous. It returns. Because, of course, it returns a function which is anonymous. So it makes sense why it gave me this output. That's why when we have function currying, we do not call it like this. We will tell it, call my function 3, then give it 4, then give it 5. This is how we call our function curry function that we have. Okay. So simply multiply 3. So 3 will become x. Then call 4. 4 will become y. Call 5, and 5 will become z. And in this case, if I try to execute it, we can now see 60. So this is how we execute our function currying that we have. Now the question that you might ask is, sir, what is the usage of it? Yes or no? What is the usage of it? Usage is very simple. Okay. First of all, we try to make our code more readable. Why? Because you can see as of now, this is a very simple example, but let me try to make it a little bit complex example. So in that case, dividing my multiple arguments into singular arguments plays a very important role. Okay. That's why I said maybe even if we do not use it in our web application, but it's a very important interview question. But let me tell you what actual interview question I received in an interview that is related to currying and our what is called recursion. Recursion is one of the very important concepts as well. Function calling itself. Okay. The question was that you are supposed to create a function. Let's take any example: addition, multiplication, subtraction. Let's create the same example, which is multiply. So I will have a multiply function which I will define, and I should be able to put as many arguments as I want. Doesn't matter how many arguments I would. I will simply say 2, and then I will simply say 3, and then I will call this. So it should give me 6. Very good, sir. Then even if I put another argument here, it should actually perform the addition. Even if I put another argument here, it should actually perform the multiplication, sorry. Even if I put another, it should actually perform. So the number of arguments should not be a limit there. The constraint is very simple. The limitations are properly defined. So I should be able to create a function which will perform such operation. Doesn't matter how many arguments I put, but how many arguments I put, it should every time work. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Yes or no? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Simple question. Okay. Now, how do we actually create such functions? How do we create such functions? Can anyone tell me? Give me an idea, small idea. Let me create a function. So I will simply define a function with the same name, which is multiply. And I will pass an argument, which is a. Done. Now, as of now, if you look at this statement, the statement is very clear. Then it can receive 2 arguments, it can receive 3 arguments, it can receive 4 arguments, it can receive 5, x, n, 1,000, million, trillion. Doesn't matter, but it should execute every time. That's what the function should do, right? And we need to tell it that the product at this point of time by default is a, because we can also pass 1 argument only, right? If I pass 3 only, it should give me 3 in the output. So the second argument, it can be there, it cannot be there. Which means if the second argument is undefined, If the second argument is undefined, then give me only the product of first argument. If the third argument is undefined, give me the multiplication of second one and second. Fourth argument is undefined, one, third, and second. Give me the multiplication of that. So I have to write logic. I have to use proper if else in this case. So I am simply going to by default let my product is equals to A, because I have to make sure that it will work for one argument only. So my product is A. So I have made my initial argument as A. Then I will tell you to return a function. Or if I return a function, it means function currying, which you can implement here. Or I can return the product later on entirely. It completely depends on me. Or I can return whatever I want, okay? Or I will return a function. Let's make it function currying only, okay? So I will define a function and let me make this function inner. It will receive an argument B. Now, don't you think this B is actually not, we don't know whether B will be received or not, right? Because it depends. The possibility is either I will receive the B or not. B can be undefined or it can be there. So I will simply say if my B is equals to undefined. If it is undefined, in that particular case, return me the original product that we have. If it is undefined, return me. Otherwise, if it is not undefined, else move forward and update my product with what multiplication equals to B that we have. Yes or no? Simple logic. If B is undefined, return my normal product at that point of time, whatever that is. If it is not, then is simply remove it. And finally, I will tell it to call my same function again, return inner. And then finally, the main function will return the inner function here. So this is also function currying. Do we all agree it's a function curry that we have? Because I'm returning another function with the argument which is B that we have. So this logic simply says that I can call the function with how many arguments completely up to me. Doesn't matter. I'm calling the same function again. Function calling itself. So inner calling inner. So what is that? That is a recursion. And then I am having simply function which returns another function that we have with another argument, singular argument. It is currying. So this is going to simply perform the operation that we have. So if I simply go say console.log and I will simply tell multiply. Multiply what? Let's suppose 2. Then let's suppose 3. And then I will pass third argument which is undefined. So in this case, if I try to execute it, it should give me 6 and it gives me 6. Not only that, I can pass another argument 4. 6, 4 is 24. And if I call it, you can clearly see it will work as well. Similarly, I can call the same function again with another argument. So let's suppose 24 into 4, which is 92, right? So I can call it here like this. And if I execute it, we can clearly see it gives me 96, sorry, right? So we have properly understood what function currying is. Am I clear? And this is one of the most important advantages of it. And this is the question that I received. And I can continuously give interviews. Whether I am interested in that job or not, Govind, I always give interviews because I always try to make sure what are the questions that are being asked currently in the market that we have. So for that reason, I continuously attend interviews in different companies, and I try to, of course, switch from one company to another company as well. So because that gives you growth, and that's what has given me growth from day one. So that's why I always try to apply into new places. Even if I'm settled, doesn't matter. I will always do that. Okay. I hope that answers your question as well. So with this, we have understood another very important topic called as function currying. Am I clear? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. With that, I'm going to move towards the new experiencer, because they selected the CV based on experience. Otherwise, usually nowadays, CVs are not getting shortlisted. But if you have experience, your CV will be shortlisted. So mine gets shortlisted in almost all cases because I have a very good experience, right? So with this, we have completed our function currying. All the 30 students, please put yes in the chat. Please put yes in the chat. Then I will move forward and we will talk about another very important method called as call, bind, apply. 3 polyfills you call them, or 3 methods that we have. So we have call, bind, and apply. And let's understand what call, bind, and apply does. All of these 3 things do the same thing. Same thing. There's a small difference, minute difference. Let's suppose, and this is what our call is supposed to do. Okay. And if you understand call, you will you know why what I would say, you will automatically understand what apply is. You will automatically understand what bind is. The only thing that you need to do is you need to understand what call is. If you understand call, apply and bind is almost same. Sir, what we have to do to shortlist our resume? The only thing that you can do is put unique projects. That's it, nothing else. Unique project is going to help you. Your unique profile, like for example, on different platforms, lead code, create a good rank of you, right? Practice every day. Create unique projects. Don't create projects that everyone is creating. Netflix clone, YouTube clone. That do not work right now. Okay, so you have to create a unique project on your resume. Put it there. Put GitHub link there so that when anyone goes on that link, they should feel very happy that okay, this is something unique, and automatically your resume will be shortlisted. I don't. If you ask me, I don't. The first, whenever I attend any interview in web development in MERN, even before starting an interview, I make myself clear to that particular interviewer. I'm not good with data structures. Although I know basics of it, I know intermediate of it, but I'm not good. So do not expect DSA questions from me. You can ask me anything from MERN, any damn thing, I will answer you, but not DSA. That's the first thing that I make sure. But I'm currently working on DSA, and I'm going to start a batch on DSA after MERN. That's the plan. A free batch on DSA, because I'm right now learning data structures and algorithms. You have to upskill yourself no matter what. You can, but not that much. And whatever DSA you need to implement in MERN, that much DSA I know, Basu. Okay. Moving forward, let's understand what call is. Let's understand what bind is. Let's understand what apply is. See, it's very straightforward. I have an object. Okay. An object, let's say the object name is student or anything, and it has some key value properties, which is, let's suppose first name is equals to, let's suppose Adfar, comma, let's suppose last name, and which is Rashid. Although I don't have to suppose it, it is what it is. Age is equals to 26. That's my age, right? And over here, I want to create a method on it. Try to understand what call is there for. So I will simply go and define a proper method, which is say name. And this is a method, so it's a callback, function, anonymous function here. And over here, I will simply tell it to return. What it is supposed to return? It's simply supposed to return this dot first name plus empty string, and then plus this dot last name. Okay. And if I go here and call my console.log, and if I call my student dot say name, okay, and if I invoke this, if I execute this, we should be able to see undefined in the output. Why? Because why does it say first name Adfar, this dot last name? Why does it say undefined? Let me see if it executes it properly. No, it's properly executed. So why does it say undefined? This dot first name is Adfar, and this dot last name is, why does it say? Okay, yes, because we are using, sorry, my mistake. We are using arrow function. And when we talk about arrow function does not have this keyword associated with it. Exactly. Yes, Govind. So we don't have to use arrow function here. So that's why I'm going to use normal function. With this, if you want to bind this keyword with it, you can use bind method. You can use bind method over here. But we will do that maybe in another case. So now if I execute it, we should be able to see Adfar Rashid in the output. Wonderful. Perfectly fine. In a similar way, I will simply go define another object that we have. Let's suppose teacher. And over here, I will give the same key value pair name. First name is equals to, let's suppose teacher is Govind. Okay. Then the last name for this is Basu. Okay. Sorry, Govind Lohar, right? Lohar. Done. And then I have age over here. Let's suppose age is 24. Perfectly fine. Similarly, I want to call the same method on this particular teacher as well. Say my name that I have, the same method I want to call on my teacher. Because first name it also has, last name it also has. So how can I call it? Do we have anything here? Do we have any option of doing this? What do you think? What do you think? See, I have student. There's a function that I have already defined with the say name. The same method that I have, I want to call it. Can I call this on my teacher? I can call it using a method called as call. So what I will do is I will simply go here and I will simply tell it console.log or console.anything else. I will tell it just the student dot say name hai. Please call that method. Student dot say name. Please call that method on the teacher that we have. I hope this might have given you a small idea of what call does. So what I have done is I already have a method inside student. The same method I want to call on my teacher without defining it for my teacher. So I'm calling it over there. So for that, I'm using a method called as call. So now if I go here and try to execute it, let's see how it works. So over here, if I try to execute it, you can clearly see it gives me Govind Lohan. So this is one usage of call method. One small usage of call method. I hope this makes sense. Am I clear? Am I clear? Done simple, straightforward thing that I have told it, hey, on my student, there's a method called as CNN. Please call that on an object. So this is simply an object, updation. I'm just giving a small perspective of my method to teacher, right? We can use prototype, but in that case, that is something different. Like prototype is a method which I want to share in lot of objects, right? Which can be shared in a lot of objects, which we have discussed in later on in other cases, right? But over here we are trying to understand call. It has multiple usages. This is one of them. Okay. Hey Ayush, hi. I hope you are doing well. Perfect, great. Okay, moving forward. So we have student.sayname.call teacher. So it has called my student.sayname on the teacher. One of the very important things. Another thing is, let's suppose I don't have these many objects. I have simple, straightforward one object. Or any other object, doesn't matter. But I want to take this function outside of it. So now neither student has this method nor teacher has this method, or I have only one object and I will define the function here. So let me define my function, and I want to define this function. The name of the function is say name, like this, like this, like this, like this. Now, please try to understand what I'm trying to say. I will say console.log this keyword, and tell me one thing. If I call my this keyword here, that's what I'm going to do now. Boss, I will tell you the definition of call method right now with this example. If I call my say name, can you tell me what will be in the output? If I call my say name method here, leave these objects aside, leave this aside as well. What will my say name, this keyword, point to? We know this keyword is nothing, but it refers to the object it belongs to. So if I am opening it via a browser, it will point to the window object. So let me try to comment this for a second. And if I try to execute it, we know it's going to reference to the global object that we have. Very good, window object. Fine. Now we simply want to listen to this word carefully. Listen to this sentence very carefully. Our entire agenda is we want to change the reference of this keyword. The whole agenda in this case is we want to change the reference of this keyword of a function to an object. It should not point to the window object. It should point to some object that we want. In that case, we will use call. So call function, when we use call method, it will invoke this function immediately with a specific this. Specific this. When we say specific this means to an object that we want it to call it with. And it receives multiple arguments more than that. As of now, call, I have passed only one argument. I will pass some other argument. See, now the same say name, I will call it in a different perspective. Try to understand what I'm trying to say. Please and please. I will say console.log. Okay. And in this case, I will tell it, say name that I have, please call this. Call it on my teacher object. What does that mean here? What does that mean? Let me execute it. So if I execute it, we can clearly see this points to the object. So if we want to update this keyword of a function and we want it to refer to an object we want it to, we can use call. Simple as that. I hope it makes sense now. Does it make sense? Does call make sense now? Simple. This is the best definition of call. I don't think there's any other thing that you can do. So we have updated this particular reference. I have updated the reference of this object to the object that I want. And for that, I will use call. Right? I will use call. So if you want to change that this point, this should not point to that. It should point to this. We will use call on that. This keyword, because it refers to the object. So we actually update the object reference of a function that we have. So let me try to rephrase it. It will work with, we use bind, it will call will work also. Call will actually bind this keyword. We will use bind method there. Bind will bind this keyword with the fat array, and that's what we do. We will do that later on in some other class, because there are a lot of functionalities where we have to do this. When we talk about call, this method will temporarily attach the function to the specific object. That's the definition. Write it down. We will talk about bind in few seconds. We have to discuss apply first, then bind. So the methods we talk here, call as well as apply, these methods temporarily attach the function to the specified object, which will allow you to execute a function with that object's this context that we have. I hope now the definition is very clear. So now we will update it with something else. Instead of saying console.log this keyword, I will tell it to return same thing. What is that? Return this dot first name, then plus, then empty, and then plus this dot last name. Now you guys tell me, if I call say name directly, do you think it makes any sense? Do you think it makes sense? Come on, guys, tell me. Do you think it makes sense? If I call it directly, no. Why? Because in my window object, first name key is not there. In my window object, last name is not there. But I know in my teacher object, first name is there. So I would want to update this context of say name to teacher. And that's what I have done here. So now if I try to call it over here, we can clearly see it gives me Govind Lohar. Why? Because I updated the, what is this called? I have updated the context of this keyword of function. Okay, I hope it makes sense. Am I clear? Am I clear? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Done? Done? Perfect. Everyone must reply in the chat. Everyone must reply in the chat. Everyone. It's very important. Perfect. Moving a little bit forward. Now, another thing is this call that we have, it receives arguments as well. For example, I have a function here. We say name, and then this is this dot first name, this dot last name, right? And when I call it on teacher, teacher has first name as well as last name, right? It has these two options. But I want it to be implemented around teacher, but I want to pass more values, right? So in this case, I will simply tell it, let's suppose it is simply variable. Another one is verse. So these are the two arguments that I'm passing. So variable verse, right? Just to do return these, that's what we already did. Console.log this. Don't you think I already did that few seconds back, Basu? Go back 2 minutes and then you will see it. I have already done console.log this. This will point to the teacher. Ignore that as of now. See, I have passed two arguments over here, variable, verse. And if I execute it, now as of now, it still gives me Govind Lohar, right? It gives me Govind Lohar. But what is the output that we want? What is the output that we want? We want variable verse. Now, how these two will be here? Of course, in its arguments. So we can pass here x, y. So these two arguments will be passed as an argument to say name. Simple, straightforward thing. Okay. And over here now we can use x, y. So I will simply say x, then plus, then hey, and then, or instead of saying hey, let's say please subscribe, right? Please subscribe. And then I will simply say plus what I want you to subscribe, simply x, and then plus empty string, and then plus y. This is what I want you to subscribe. So I have passed x, y, and then I have passed two arguments here. And if I execute it, you can clearly see it says Govind, please subscribe variable verse Lohar. So these are the arguments that will be passed to the function as arguments as well. So you can pass these arguments as well. This is what we mean by call. Simple thing. I hope call is now completely understood, right? So, but sir, the first argument will be an object in call method. Yes. This is object. These are arguments passed to the function. on which you are calling this, on which you are binding this object method, function method that we have. So yes, first argument is the object to which you want to call this method that we have. So first argument is objects. Second and third arguments are the arguments that will pass to the function that we have. I hope this also makes sense. Okay, sir, we understood this. But what is bind? Apply. Apply is same thing. Apply is exactly what call is. But in that particular case, what we actually do is we pass these arguments as array of elements over there. There's no other difference. We have call and apply exactly same. So let me control C, control V here, and let me try to comment this. And over here, I will simply pass these two arguments as array. There's no other difference. So when we talk about call and when we talk about apply, both of them are same. Both of them are same. The only difference is how arguments are passed to that function. So in our call, arguments are passed simply as a separate values. But inside our apply, arguments are passed as my object over there. That's the only difference that we have. So if we try to execute it in this case, you can clearly see it still works. Although there's undefined here. What is undefined? So variable verse is properly working. Something is undefined. What is that? So this dot first name is Govin. Then I will put a space. Then X is variable, right? And X is variable. Then verse is Y. Okay. What is it? Consoling. So what is undefined? That's what I'm trying to figure out. So Y is verse. Okay, maybe this Y is this. Okay, yes, Y is undefined. So it's an array. It's an array. So Y is undefined. So let me try to execute it now. So if I execute it like this, in this case, undefined should not be there. Perfectly fine, right? So Y is undefined. Call to apply. Very good. It's apply. Sorry. Apply. Done. So if I execute it now, it says, Govin, please subscribe variable. And now I can put Y. I was thinking what I did wrong here. So let me put Y here and then something like this. So if I execute it now, it's simply Govin, please subscribe variable verse Lohar. That's it. Parameter is array. That is the difference. And we have this apply method. So this is the difference between call and apply. But what is bind, sir? What is bind? Bind is call and apply both, but it is divided into two parts. When we talk about bind, it's call, but in both. Sir, confused. What is the confusion? I don't think there should be any confusion. Straightforward thing, right? See, call is understood. Let's understand apply. Apply is exactly what call does. Exactly. The only difference is the arguments that I have passed, they are passed as an array. So this first argument will be the element which is at 0th index. Second argument will be the element which is at 1th index, and so on and so forth. So what is the difference? What is the difference? Then simple cheese, straightforward thing. Now we talk about bind here. So what is my bind? What is my bind? As I said, bind is exactly same to my call and apply, but there's a small difference. What is the difference, sir? That when we use bind, it first of all, not necessarily, I will first of all try to comment this and copy it. So let me try to comment it. So let me comment it. And over here to this, I will not pass first of all the arguments. Okay. I will simply say on my say name, please bind. What are you going to bind? Teacher. Perfectly. And if I execute it at this point of time, I don't see there's anything. I don't see there's anything in my console. No, there's nothing. I'm consoling something, but I'm not seeing what this say name is supposed to do. I'm not seeing this dot first name, please subscribe, and all those things. I'm not able to see that. So what does bind do? Then the arguments to the function will be passed like that, right? See, if I have variable verse, comma, adfer, comma, z, so those arguments will be defined here, na? X, y, z, a, b, c, d, depends on the number of elements in an array. So it depends completely. So we have bind. When we say bind is used to simply bind the function with that object, but not called. Call will bind as immediately invoke as well. If you look at this call, it binded say name with my teacher, but also immediately called it, invoked this, and we saw the output. Similarly, when we talk about apply, it binded my say name with teacher and called it immediately. But when we talk about bind is something that will simply bind the object with that function, but not invoke it immediately. So I will simply say, let my, let's give it some name. Let's say bind. Okay, let my bind is equal to say name bind teacher. And then I will go here and I will now call my bind. So I will simply say console.log bind, and then I will simply invoke it like this. So bind is simply call divided into two steps without any argument that we have. So if I try to execute it here and now it will properly work, Govind, please subscribe Lohar. Something like that. Understood what bind is? Similar to core, but divided into two steps. That it will bind the function, then later on you have to call it separately. You cannot call it immediately. No, you have to call it separately. So bind will simply bind your function to the object and then later on you can invoke it. Call will bind the function to your object and immediately invoke it. Apply will bind your function with the object and immediately invoke it. But binds divides it into two steps. I hope this makes complete sense. I hope I'm clear with all of these three things, which is call, bind, and apply. Do we have any confusion now? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Quick confirmation in the chat. Am I clear, guys? Am I clear? So I'm launching the addends form. I'm sharing the addends form in the chat section. Please submit your addends, because this is the last addends form related to our JavaScript that I'm going to share. And now a new form will be created with respect to React, and new Google Classroom will be created with respect to React. And over there, we will handle all of those things. Okay. So I think we are good with our JavaScript. I hope that when we started our JavaScript, it was 11th or 12th lecture. And right now it's 27th, which means we have spent almost 34 to 32 hours on JavaScript only. And I have given you the best content that I could have given you on JavaScript. And I understand there are still few concepts that are missing from JavaScript, which I have not deliberately delivered because they are not that much asked and involved in JavaScript right now. But if you have any questions, feel free. There's a class that I'm going to take on portfolio, or I will ask anyone else to take a portfolio class. It's already scheduled in next week, not this week, next week. Sardi, definitely 100%. Okay. I'm going to tell you portfolio. And what are the portfolio projects? You have to find that. Okay. Some unique projects according to your, what is this called? According to your own creativity that you have. Please do that. Please find it and see what we can do. So thank you so much, Rigor Sears. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I might be wrong, right? Thank you so much for that. Am I clear, guys? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat quickly. Okay, but from tomorrow we are going to definitely take our React. So do not even think of leaving that, because when we talk about creating front-end web application, it's very important for us to understand that we will create MERN application. And when we talk about MERN, there's R in that, which stands for React. So you will not create web applications mostly using JavaScript. You will create web applications using your, React. We will not use DOM in most of the cases, but React, right? So thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. You're a great teacher. Thank you so much, Rigor. I don't know whether I pronounce your name correctly or not, but that's it. Thank you so much. And for that as well. You as well, please take care of yourself, okay? So we will connect tomorrow exactly at 10 a.m. IST, and we will start our React. Today, we have an orientation session for React at 8 p.m. IST, and we will set up our expectations related to React, and we'll see what we can do. So thank you so much, guys, for joining this session. I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope you have completely understood it. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Have a great day ahead. See you in the tomorrow's class. Bye.